The everyday man-at-arms of the Gaelic Irish in the 13th century would have been common sight on the field of battle, as accounts of Irish using large ranks of troops in order to fight alongside their lord and kings. Many accounts recall of Irish kerns being part of the ranks of the man-at-arms of Ireland, but only when raiding season wasn't in flux. Accounts tell of Irish men-at-arms fighting both on foot and on horseback, as accounts record them as known as the Irish Freefoot, describing the Irish men-at-arms who were able to fight in battle with arms and armour identical to that of Irish knights. Some accounts even describe Irish men-at-arms even being able to ride a horse into battle alongside their noble lord. As an account in 1231 tell of 20 Irish knights with their retinue of 50 men per night, equaling it up to about over 1,000 men, making the Anglo-Irish believe they were facing far larger force than what they were really facing, causing the Anglo-Irish to flee from the field of battle before battle could give way. Short tunics and trousers would be worn in order to allow the wearer to be more lighter on the field of battle, as accounts describe of tunics only reaching around that of a length of mid-thigh to the knees, and such would be of a mix of colors. However, the most common color would be of that of the tunics being that of the yellow dye, mainly because of how cheap the dye was, giving the way to the Irish warriors wearing a common yellow colors. In later history, the yellow dye would be known as the colour of war to the Irish. Leggings were a common form of garment in which would be of an everyday style. The leggings would be tied to the string of the trousers, and in such would be tied below the knee to keep the loose fabric close for a tighter feel.
Gwyn-gwendid Breton a galon, Gwyn-gwendid Breton, Gwyn-gwendid Breton a galon, Gwyn-gwendid Breton. Tant dire, tant dire, tant dire, tant.
The Irish man-at-arms would wear a mix of footwear, some in which would be copied from that of the English. However, Gaelic Irish wore a form of footwear that would continue to be used up into the 20th century. But many accounts also describe the Irish would go into battle without wearing any form of legwear or footwear, mainly because of this landscape and terrain in Ireland. Irish men-at-arms would wear a form of long-sleeve padded garments and a form of padded headwear in order to protect the user from impact blows. Most padded armour of this time would have been that of the closed gambeson and arming cap. In Ireland, the closed gambeson would continue to be used up until the 14th century. At times, Irish men-at-arms would only wear the gambeson when fighting on the field of battle, as it depended on the user. Irish men-at-arms would wear a mix of male armor designs, as many times Irish soldiers would actually wear that of short-sleeve shirts of mail, while others would wear an addition of that of an attached male coif, or aventail, in which connected both the helmet and the shirt of mail. But in such, it depended on the user, as by the 13th century, the male coif would no longer be attached to the male shirt. Woven belts would be worn in order to identify friend from foe on the field of battle, as these were commonly used in a form of way up until the 19th century to tell where a man was from, indicating a man's coat of arms, of who he was in service to. In the early half of the 13th century, the Irish would wear a mix of nasal, skull cap, and even bowl helmets, as accounts even state of users wearing nasal helms with an addition of cheek guards, and even at times back neck guards. These helmets would help protect the user from downward chopping blows, as well as even impact weapons. These styles of helmets would be worn up until the mid-14th century, while by the late 13th century, Irish men-at-arms would mostly wear that of bowl or skull cap helmets. The swords that were used at this time were mostly that of a copy from that of the late Norman style swords, along with that of Norse scale swords, as the pommels of these swords were of a mix of round, oval, and Brazilian nut pommel. It is highly believed that these swords were copied from the Anglo-Irish in the previous late 12th century. Accounts of long daggers or skin would be used on the battlefield. These would be of a single-edged blade with a blade length of around 12 to 14 inches. The way in which the dagger was used was to be drawn by the user's shield arm, in which would allow the user to hide the said blade behind the shield, so that way he could fight with more than one weapon. As accounts describe of Irish men-at-arms using a long dagger's blade to catch an opponent's weapon, or to simply stick the man with a blade or cut him if they were close enough in the field of battle. The shields that were used were mostly that of a strapped-on design, and such would be identical to the Scottish charge, of which were either made of wicker and hide design, or overlapping plate of wood with overlapping leather. As well, there were accounts of buckler shields being used as a form of common shield fighting for both defense and offense, making the Irish man-at-arms more faster on the field of battle, depending on how you preferred to fight. clubs would be a commonly form of secondary weapon on the field of battle used by the men-at-arms, as accounts describe of Irish soldiers using blunt impact weapons fashioned from wood to break an opponent underneath his armor. These weapons would be perfect to strike an opponent on exposed limbs, such as their arms or legs. Breaking an opponent's legs would cause the enemy to be unable to stand in the middle of a fight, while impacting their arms would cause the opponent to be unable to raise their weapon or shield on the field of battle. Irish men-at-arms would use the axe as a form of common backup weapon, especially if they had lost their spear on the field of battle. Most of these spears were commonly designed of that of a light-headed style of fighting, meaning it would have been of a smaller style head for more impact and quick blows. But there are a few mentions of that of two-handed axes, in which could be used as a form to break the opponent's line. However, it's believed that these weapons would actually slowly fall out of favor for the Gaelic Irish, possibly from dealing with the Anglo-Irish tactics, or possibly from galloglass being used on the field of battle starting in the 13th century.
Din din do da dum do da dum do. Din din do da dum do zo. Verulles replegama, verulles replegama. E when you vengo digo. Din din do da dum do da dum do. Din din do.
While that of javelins would be more highly used by the Irish all the way into the 16th century, pretty much identical to how the Irish knights would use such weapon in battle. However, it was only common for Irish men-at-arms to use the javelin when they were fighting on horseback. The spear would be a common weapon for the everyday men-at-arms of Ireland. These would be used in order to cause quick thrusting blows upon the opponent, as by the 13th century it would be more common of Irish units start using the pike. Historical accounts tell of Irish units using mix of pikes in order to trap and even pin down enemy cavalry. However, very little information is known how these pike formations would be used. And finally, Irish men-at-arms would at times take with them a bow and a bundle of arrows. The bow would be used in the form of the rear ranks of allied units in order to help create an opening or break the enemy formations. Other accounts tell of Irish bowmen releasing volleys of arrows only to then charge into battle when their last arrow had been released. Thank you for watching. Comment down below how you would dress as an Irish man-at-arms, what weapons and armor and equipment you use. As well, y'all, stay tuned because very soon we will be getting to more Irish videos. So, hope to see y'all in the next one. Have a great day, y'all.
Kulanto mein Brianto mein Kulanto mein Vojoch Kulanto mein Brianto mein Hulalana Monar Amiski smilum him Waineranich Amiski smilum him Waineranich dönan Spoch nach Romila terist Shinne wie ich jolver Rachin lat gekul na krunje var tunje sjola Amiski smilum him Waineranich Amiski smilum him Waineranich dönan Amiski smilum him Waineranich Amiski smilum him Waineranich dönan